Hey everyone, my name is Tim Shope, and I am a career advisor in the MTSU Career Development Center. Today in this video, we're going to be discussing some of the basics of writing a good resume. So why is it so important to know how to write a good resume? Well, number one, on average for corporate job postings, employers receive about 250 resumes per posting. That's a lot of resumes. And again, that's a corporate setting, so maybe that's a little bit inflated, but still, the idea stands. Employers are receiving a lot of resumes. So that means that yours has to stand out. It has to be good. Also, on average, employers only take 6 seconds to look at a resume. So you have a very quick window to make a good impression and hopefully offer you an interview. So when you really think about it, a resume is a marketing document for you. And a well done resume is going to accomplish a few key outcomes for you. A good resume should highlight who you are and demonstrate how you meet the hiring audience's needs. Now, those 3 words, hiring audience's needs, are super important. We're going to think about our hiring audience and what they need constantly as we're creating our resume. What skills do they want? What are they looking for in their ideal candidate? A good resume will also create interest in the employer to hopefully offer you an interview. So that's another thing. Always remember that a resume is not to get a job. A resume does not get you a job. A resume will hopefully get you an interview and move you on to the next step of the process. So while a resume is very important to the application process, it is not the entire application process, and there's other things that we need to focus on in that process as well. A resume should also show the employer what makes you unique, what makes you the ideal candidate that they're looking for, what sets you apart from all these other candidates that have also applied to this position. And lastly, a resume is going to create structure for you and the employer in the interview. So that means never put anything on your resume that is not true. That's going to come out during the interview, and it's going to be really awkward when it does, okay? Also, that means that you should be willing to defend everything that you've written on your resume. If it's on your resume, it's up for game to be discussed in the interview with the employer. So we believe that there are 3 different key elements of the resume that you need to be able to master in order to write a good, effective resume. One is the format, or how everything is organized and structured on the resume. The second is the design. So that includes font types, font sizes, colors, graphics, etc. And the third is the content. So the actual word choice and phrasing that you use on your resume. So let's start off by talking about format. The first question we all have about a resume is how long should our resume be? The typical answer is 1 page. And that's very true of college students and those who will be recent college graduates. You should try to stick to keeping your resume at 1 page. However, if you get later down the road, you get more experience, you have several jobs, you can't fit it on 1 page, then you can go to a 2-page resume. However, we always warn against having partial pages. If you have a partial page, it looks like you just might not be able to fill out enough content. You don't have enough experience to fill out your resume. So always try to have a full page when you create your resume. Next, you want to think about your margins on your resume. We suggest 1/2 inch margins all the way around to no more than 3/4 of an inch margins all the way around. And that just maximizes the space that you have on your resume, maximizes the amount of space that you have to write your bullet points under each of your experiences. You're going to want some eye-catching name and contact information on your resume as well. So we suggest that your name is the largest thing on your resume, and we suggest 16 to 24 point font. And that just keeps it in the range of it's the biggest thing on your resume, it's eye-catching, but it's not too obnoxious. Lastly, with format, you really want to consider how you're going to order the sections on your resume. So we suggest obviously having your name and contact information right there at the top of the resume in the header. Next, you're going to put something called a branding section, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video. And then after that, because you're a college student or because you might be a recent grad, you want to put your education section right under that branding section. Put it right at the top. Show employers what you've been doing the past 4 or so years, however many years it's been for you. Show them your most recent experiences at the top. Show off that new degree that you have. After that, we suggest putting your work experience. So you could do a relevant experience section if you feel like you have a lot of relevant experiences, and then also do an other experience section. Or you can combine those and just have a work experience section. It's up to you. Some other sections you might want to include in your format are internships. Those can also go under work experiences. You could put in a section for volunteer work, certifications that you might have, professional organizations that you might be a part of, presentations that you've done during your college career that you've done a lot of research for. So think about other sections that you can include on your resume. What are other really relevant, important things that you can put on your resume? All right, so next we're going to talk about design. So the main thing when you're thinking about design on your resume is, again, think about who your hiring audience is. If your hiring audience is super creative, maybe you're going into graphic design, maybe you should include some color, some graphics on your resume in order to show off your creativity. Say you're going into something that is just the opposite of creative. Don't worry about getting too wrapped up in the design elements on your resume. It should just be straightforward and to the point. Some other things to consider when designing your resume. One, make sure you're utilizing white space. Do some double spaces every once in a while. Don't just have line after line after line of text on your resume. Give the reader a break on your resume. Utilize white space well. You also don't want too much white space because then it looks like you don't have a lot of content on your resume. So think about the amount of white space that you have on your resume. You also want to apply your design and your style in a consistent manner. If you italicize the dates of one experience, make sure you italicize the dates of every experience that you have. If you bold the name of one of the companies that you work for, make sure you bold the name of every single company you work for. Stay consistent in the way that you use your design elements. So you also need to think about your fonts on your resume. We typically suggest 11 to 12 point font for the majority of your resume. Again, your name should be 16 to 24 point in order to be eye-catching, in order to stick out. Also, you want to think about utilizing different fonts on your resume. So for example, maybe you use a serif font for your headings of each section so that they stick out and they're a little bit more eye-catching. But when you write out your bullet points and more of a sentence form, maybe you want to use a more readable text, something that's easier for the employer to read and get through quickly. All right, so the last key element that we believe you should master is the content of your resume. And the first thing I want to talk about with content is the branding section, or the branding statement that I mentioned earlier in this video. A branding section is something that goes at the top of your resume, and it really immediately addresses the needs that the employer has listed in their job posting. So how do you write a good branding statement or branding section? You go thoroughly read the job posting, pull out key skills that you find, pull out some themes that you find, and address those things in the branding section. Another element that you can add to your branding section is a list of skills or proficiencies that you have that you feel like are most relatable and relevant to the job posting, to the position that you're applying for. And this can be a simple bullet pointed list of skills you possess. All right, so let me show you a good example of a good, well-written branding section. So this person was probably a major in communication, maybe applying to something in the communication field. So they start off by saying, a self-motivated communicator who energizes teams and organizations to achieve positive public relations using effective interpersonal communication skills, project management skills, and social media outreach strategies. Strengthens client relationships through blogging, special event promotions, and engagement on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then below, you can see the skills and technical proficiencies section with a 3-column list of bullet points of skills that this person possesses that are relatable to the position that they are applying for. All right, so let's move on to talk about the content that should be included in your education section. Obviously, you want to include the name of the university you graduated from or will graduate from. You want to include your date of graduation, or if it's in the future, your expected date of graduation. You also want to include the exact degree title that you have. Are you graduating with a Bachelor of Science? Are you graduating with a Bachelor of Arts, etc.? Make sure it's the correct degree title. Also, we suggest that you include your GPA if it's 3.0 or higher. And the reason we say 3.0 or higher is because if it's 3.0 or higher, it's just another selling point that you can add to your resume. Also, you want to include any scholarships you have that you received. You want to include any achievements, awards, even something like Dean's List you can put under your education section. You also want to include any research presentations that you did during your college career. That could go in a separate section if you would like it to, or it can go under the education section. You can also include a list of some of your relevant coursework, but make sure it's higher level coursework. As far as the content in your experience section goes, you always want to make sure that you write short, succinct, concise bullet points to describe your experience. Personally, I like to put on 3 to 5 bullet points for each experience, but the number of bullet points is up to you. Just make sure you're writing in bullet points and not in paragraph form. That can overwhelm the employer, and sometimes they don't want to spend that much time looking at your resume. So make sure you're writing in short, concise bullet points. When it comes to your bullet points, you don't want to just focus on the responsibilities that you had in your past positions. When an employer reads your position title, they have a pretty good idea of what your responsibilities were in that position. Rather, you should focus on skills used and results achieved in that position. When you're thinking about what content you should include in your bullet points, what should you talk about, these questions are really helpful to think about when you're trying to develop that content and know what to write. What problems did you solve in your past position? What revenue did you generate? What expenses did you reduce? What projects did you complete? Did you make any improvements to operations? Did you develop new ideas that were successfully implemented? And what were you commended for doing well in your position? So the last thing for your bullet points is that you want to start off your bullet points with a verb. And these verbs should not be passive, like duties included, but rather they should be dynamic action verbs. So planned, implemented, launched, designed. Think about action verbs that you can use to start off your bullet points to describe what you did in your past positions. So those were the 3 key elements that we think you need to master in order to best write your resume. Again, those are format, design, and content. But what else do you need to know before you finish writing your resume? One, and this is very obvious, but you want to have it proofread by multiple people. By the time you're done writing your resume, you will probably have looked at that resume 1,000 times. Make sure to get a different set of eyes on there to help you find any punctuation mistakes, grammar mistakes, any other types of mistakes that might be on your resume. You always want to save 2 different copies of your resume, at least. One as a Word document, so you can go back and continually edit your document. The resume is dynamic, it changes a lot, so you want to be able to edit easily. And the other is a PDF version. So whenever you send it off to an employer, to a grad school, whatever it might be, however you send it off professionally, you want to save it as a PDF. That's going to lock in your design, your format, and so if somebody opens it up in a different program than what you've created it in, it's going to look exactly the same. You don't want to send a Word document, have somebody else open it in Pages on a Mac, and it's going to throw off your format, your design, everything, and it's going to look very disorganized. So always send it off as a PDF. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about today is our document drop program here in the MTSU Career Development Center. So if you'd like someone to review your resume, cover letter, personal statement, CV, whatever professional document it might be, you can send it to us at pca@mtsu.edu. Send it to us as a Word document. Somebody in our office is going to take a look at that, make some comments on it, send it back to you within a few days, and you make those edits. And if you want to, you can send it back to us as well, and we can go through multiple rounds of editing with you until it gets into a good place where you feel comfortable sending it off to employers, grad schools, whoever it might be. So always know that this is a resource. We can help you with those 3 key elements that we talked about today in this video: format, design, and content. Again, my name is Tim Shope, a career advisor in the MTSU Career Development Center. Please know that we're here to help you with any career development needs you might have, whether it's career or major exploration, the job or internship search, resume writing or cover letter writing, interviewing, preparing for graduate school, whatever that career development need might be, we're here to serve you and we're happy to serve you.